In this video, we'll be talking about drop stitches. And drop stitches is one of the most common knitting problems that you'll run into. And if you have dropped a stitch, it's totally normal. I do it all the time, so don't freak out, even though it looks a little bit scary. So what a drop stitch is you'll see this stitch right here has come off the needles and has undone itself and fallen down a couple of rows. And the yarn that's in between here is what we call laddering. And this is the yarn that was used to make the stitches. And basically what we're going to do is re-knit or re-purl these stitches. So normally you can do this with a crochet hook or double point needle. I tend not to use either. I've kind of invented my own way of doing this, and it involves just using the needles that I have. So the first step to this, and we'll be doing both knitting and purling drop stitches because it's helpful to know both, especially as you get more into patterns. You might need to purl a stitch as opposed to knit it. So I'm going to show you both ways, but we'll start off with the knit stitch. So step number one is to knit where your stitch is. I've actually done this already, so I'm just going to slip these stitches to my other needle. Okay, so my yarn's right here. I've now gotten to that drop stitch, and the first thing you'll want to do is just put that stitch on your right hand needle. Okay, so we're going to be using the yarn that's laddering, as our working yarn instead of using this yarn right here. When you're knitting a stitch, remember that your working yarn needs to be in the back, and if you're purling it, it needs to be in the front. So for this example, we are having our yarn in the back. So I've put my stitch on that needle, and the second thing I'm going to do is just pick up the next, the closest ladder. So right here, I'm just going to pick that up and put it on my needle, like so. Then I'm actually just going to put it over to my left hand needle again, so it looks a little bit like this. Then I am just going to kind of put it back on there, and the reason I go back and forth with that is to kind of make sure the stitch is in the right direction, and when you do it back and forth, it just makes it in the right direction. Then what you do is just insert your left hand needle like you would knitting, and you simply pass that working yarn over just like that, and see I've re-knit that stitch. So you'll continue to do it because our stitch dropped down 3 rows, so we're going to do it 2 more times. Okay, so I just go like this, kind of pass it over again, and then knit it. Do it one more time. And if you don't feel like making sure that it's exactly the stitches the right way, as we'll get into that with twisted stitches later on, but you can just simply practice by having it on the right hand needle first. And there you go. Now I've knit all the way back up to where I should be, and now, but it's on the right hand needle. So I'm going to put it on the left hand needle and then just knit the rest of my row. And as you can see, you can't even tell that that stitch came undone and I fixed it. It's really simple, just keep practicing, and if you dropped a stitch, don't worry about it. Now what I'm going to do is demonstrate a dropped purl stitch. So I'm actually just going to undo my work a little bit and purposely drop one of my stitches. And I'm just pulling on the yarn to undo it. So we'll do 3 more rows again. Okay, so as you can see, it looks exactly the same from the front. Here is the back. Okay, so with purling, same thing. You'll want to work to the stitch, okay, and then the next stitch will be the purl stitch, or the drop stitch, sorry. So again, you just put it on your needles, your right hand needle, but like I said, you want to make sure that the yarn, the working yarn that we're using, remember not this one, the one that came undone, we're going to put that on in the front because we're making a purl stitch, so our bump is in the front of the stitch. Okay, so just put that on your right hand needle, and then you can use I use my thumb for this, but you can use your needle as well. Okay, so I've just put it on my left hand needle, and then I'm just gonna purl it, and I've used my thumb to kind of guide me along there. And there you go, I've now purled that stitch. So again, you'll have to take it off the needle at this point because you want to just hold it there, and you'll want to move that yarn into the front because it's naturally going to go behind the stitch, so you're going to have to take your stitch, slip it off, hold it, and I'm just holding it with my thumb and my middle finger, and then I can put it back on the needle. So you'll have to do that for every single row that you're doing. And this time I'm not even going to put the working yarn on my left hand needle, I'll just use my thumb. And then I just purl. Okay, so again I'm taking it off, holding it, and making sure that yarn is in the front, and then I'm just purling. Okay, so then I actually would just knit or purl the rest of my row. And there you have it. No drop stitches. Now if you've dropped more than one stitch in a row, you'll have to work them all individually. And if you if you drop stitches that are right beside each other, your ladder will actually appear wider. So that's actually 2 stitches worth of yarn. So you'll have to do one, fix one, and then fix the other. If this is confusing to you at all, definitely please post in the group for questions, or you can message and email me, because drop stitches are nothing to panic about. They just need practice on how to fix them, and once you get it, it's super easy.